Mac guys, only it's Barrett Brooks in for that's not John McMullen. In case you didn't notice, that's Big D, Barrett Brooks, filling in for Johnny Mac here with us on Birds 365. And right now, we're going to go into enemy territory. At least that's where he's working these days. But between you and me, he's one of us. Philly guy from KRON in San Francisco, Jason Dumas joins us here on Birds 365. Jason, I see you're still in San Fran. Thank you very much for getting up early with us. Not coming into Philly for the game? Did they ground you? Did they tell you couldn't go because you'd wear your Philly colors to the game? Why the hell aren't you in Philly this weekend?
We sent one of our sports reporters and one of our photographers out there. So I think they have a flight this morning out to the East Coast. I was actually just out in Philly all last week. I just got back to San Francisco midweek this week. So our colleague is taking a trip out east for the game.
Oh, so you already had your Philly cheesesteaks and you know everything from the crib already, huh?
Oh yeah. I got my fix last week. Got to see the fam. It was a good time.
All right, Jason, we need you to fill in the attitude of the San Francisco fan this week. As you can well guess, and you probably know it if you didn't leave till Sunday after they put the beat down on the Giants. Eagle fans pretty confident. Eagle fans are feeling themselves. They are the favorite in the game, 2.5-point choice over San Francisco, and think they're going to the Super Bowl. We oftentimes don't look at it how the other team looks at it. How confident are the 49er fans out there in the Bay Area?
So the team is way more confident than the fans.
Really?
Yeah, the fans aren't as confident as I thought they would be. I'm pretty shocked too. Most people I've been talking to, they're either pessimistic or cautiously optimistic, but none of them are very, extremely confident. They realize this Eagles team is a really good team that's only lost one game with their starting quarterback under center. And, they know they have to travel into enemy's territory too, so all that is fighting against them. Now, they're not, they're not saying we're going to get blown out, but I've seen their attitude week in, week out for the entire season, and it's changed a little this week. It has, and I was surprised with that.
And respect, you're drawing that as respect for the Eagles rather than questioning the 49ers.
Say that one more time.
I said you're looking at that more as respect for the Eagles, respect for the opposition, than going, yeah, we're kind of lucky to be here as the 49ers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all respect to the Eagles. They love their Niners, and they think the Niners are good. I mean, the Niners have won 12 straight games. They're the hottest team in football. That's just an objective truth. But, from the totality of the season, from week one to now, all things considered, the Eagles have been the best team in football. And they're aware of that. They're a smart fan base. You get some fan bases delusional. And the 49ers fan base, they're very smart. They're very knowledgeable. And you could just sense that they're kind of like, this is a tall order.
Well, looking at all things being equal and the quarterback situation, you try to find something that, could be a pivot point on leaning, either side, whether you're going with the defense, the offense. I think the biggest tipping point when I look at this team and look at both teams is two great defenses, offenses with a lot of weapons. But I think the Eagles have the edge at the quarterback position. Give me your analysis on Purdy and, Jalen and how they both intertwine in this game and how they're both going to affect this game.
Yeah, Barrett, that's kind of been my same points most of the week. I think both of these rosters stack up pretty evenly, but the Eagles have that edge at quarterback and they'll have home field advantage. So I think that'll help sway things in their favor. But I don't think Brock Purdy is a Cinderella story. I've seen a lot of chatter on Twitter, a lot of rhetoric over from Philly saying, I can't wait to expose Brock Purdy. I can't wait to end this whole Cinderella story. I don't think it's a Cinderella story. I think Brock Purdy is a really good player, and I think he's going to be the Niners quarterback of the future.
Wow.
Yeah, Kyle Shanahan hasn't committed to that, but, from everything I've heard from behind closed doors and just what I see with my eyes, he's their guy. Trey Lance didn't look great, honestly, when he was playing. He wasn't bad per se, but Brock Purdy has been miles better. And Kyle Shanahan is the type of guy who doesn't matter where you're drafted, the pedigree you have, he's going to go with who he thinks is the best quarterback. And I would guess Brock Purdy's going to get that nod. So I don't think Brock Purdy's going to get rattled too much. If he makes mistakes, it's going to be because the Eagles are just good and they make plays. I don't think it's going to be because this guy just gets rattled and just gets in his head and starts throwing the ball. I think if he does make mistakes, it'll be because the Eagles made plays. I don't think it'll really be because of the surroundings or the moment being too big for him. This dude is really even-keeled. He says all the right things. He looks the part. I mean, he kind of, knowing the context behind his story, Mr. Irrelevant, third string coming in, so that comes with a lot of stuff. But if this guy was drafted in the second, third round, no one would bat an eye. He's been extremely productive. He was really good in college. He got dinged a bunch because of his measurables. Obviously, he's undersized, has small hands. But, we've seen undersized guys with small hands play well in the NFL. I think Brock Purdy is going to be one of those guys. I think he's here for the long run. And I don't think he's going to be scared of the moment. I mean, the 49ers might not win, but I don't think it'll be because Brock Purdy just melted down.
Yeah, you and I see this the same way. I think Purdy is being underestimated coming into this game. If he's the second best quarterback on the field on Sunday, he's behind the guy who's probably going to be the runner-up for MVP in the league. Yeah, that's not the worst thing in the world to be behind Jalen Hurts at this stage of the season.
Right.
I don't think it's necessarily the Cinderella story because, if he lost that glass slipper, that defense picked it up. So, I don't see it that way. But what I do see is a really, really good pass rush that could but the only thing is when you look at these two coordinators, man, I love, how they've taken what they have and made it great. I look at, what Ryan has done in San Fran. He's taking guys, and this is a very simplistic defense. They're going to line up where they're going to line up, and they're going to just whoop your ass. He's going to whoop the guy in front of you. And then I look at, the opposite side with Gannon. He's the same way. He wants to get that D-line going, and he loves his cornerbacks and how they're able to cover. But is there a sense that can both teams be too overly aggressive? Because they have two offenses that can really, really go out there and make some plays.
Yeah, well, the Niners secondary, they get in a lot of trouble for being over-aggressive. Talanoa Hufanga, their young second-year all-world, that kid is really, really good. Their safety, fourth-round pick, he can bite because he is so eager to ring people's bells. He gets a little bit in trouble. One little shoulder shimmy, one pump fake, all of a sudden he's biting and you got someone running behind him. Charvarius Ward, Mooney Ward, as they call him, their starting cornerback. He's been great for most of the year. He came over from Kansas City. He was Kansas City's #1 corner last year. But he gets in funks. And we've seen it a little bit for the totality of the season. A guy like Darius Slay has been pretty good. But there's been certain games where it's like, damn, Darius isn't on his P's and Q's today. Same thing happens every now and then with Ward. Now, Ward, again, he's aggressive. He's a great tackler for his position. But sometimes that aggressiveness bites him in the butt, and you can go over top. So I think the aggressiveness really, really hurts the Niners in the secondary. But that linebacker core led by Fred Warner and Al-Shaair, they're so good. Fred Warner last week, honestly, is one of the most impeccable linebacking performances I've ever seen. He was just a madman out there covering every inch of the field.
Right.
One guy who I think needs to step up and make some plays if the Niners want to have a chance is Nick Bosa. All we've been hearing all season long, Nick Bosa this, Nick Bosa that. He's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I barely heard his name all postseason. And that's kind of been it hasn't really been a theme because they love him so much out here. He can't really do any wrong, so he hasn't really been criticized. And it's only been 2 games, so I'm not saying he should be thrown under the bus. But, if he doesn't make plays this Sunday, the Niners and the Niners fan base should look back on this postseason and say Nick Bosa underperformed.
You're right. He doesn't have a sack yet this year in the postseason. He's had 2 good postseason runs in previous years, but this year he does not have a sack yet. You're right, Jason.
Yeah.
Key guy for me, for the 49ers. Howie Roseman won Executive of the Year yesterday, and he should have, for what he did building this team prior to the season starting, putting together the roster that they did. But the best in-season acquisition was Christian McCaffrey for the 49ers. Took a whole new dynamic to the offense, adding McCaffrey. He was not himself last week. 35 yards on 10 carries. We know he's got a calf issue. What Christian McCaffrey are the Eagles going to be facing this week?
Well, he hasn't played. He hasn't practiced all week, but he was asked yesterday, what's the percentage that you won't be able to get out there? And he said 0. He's going to play, and I think he's going to be effective. I think he's the best player on the 49ers offense. And they have a bunch of really good players. The offense was solid before he came, but they took another step, another level since he's been there. He's just, when you can run it the way he runs it and then you can catch it out the backfield, and when you're so versatile, it really exhausts the defense and the defensive coordinator because you always have to account for him. So I think he'll be fine, but that's been his issue his whole career. The one issue he's had is injuries. And if that calf slows him down, that would be huge for the Birds. But he really helped win them the game against the Cowboys. It was that mid to late third quarter drive, the Niners' only touchdown drive. He was just eating up yards that entire drive. I think it was a 10-play, 93-yard drive for their first and only touchdown of the game. He was a big part of that drive. He finished it with a touchdown. They were just feeding him the ball. He's critical. Like I said, I think he's their best player.
Well, yeah, but the guy behind Elijah Mitchell, it's not like he's, switched cheese. He's stepped up too. He's pretty dynamic himself. But, you look at their offense, they got so many weapons, and Shanahan does a great job of moving guys around to create matchups. And it's up to Gannon to combat that. As far as explosive plays, and being able to go out there and really take advantage of that. Do you think Shanahan at this point holds the key, or do you say Gannon can combat what they're doing as far as all the movement they do, in their misdirection and everything else they do on offense?
Well, I think Gannon, he has to be very intentional about his game plan. And, there's some of the soft shell defenses that we've seen from the Eagles this year. I think that could hurt them because
yes.
It's the Niners can kill you in those underneath intermediate routes. They really can. And they also can kill you with the run after catch. Kittle, Samuel, McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, they are electric after the catch. They can make people miss and break a 7-yard play into a 70-yard play. Now, I think the Eagles, they're pretty sure with their tackling. I mean, against the Colts, they had a little issues with tackling, but I think they'll be fine with the tackling. But it's those intermediate routes that they really need to worry about, those constant 5 to 9 yard gains underneath and the quick slants that Kyle Shanahan runs a lot. I think Gannon really needs to focus on that. And Shanahan, he will expose you if you play that soft shell defense and you're not aggressive. So that's what I don't think you have to be worried so much about the big play. I think it's more so those intermediate routes in the middle of the field. Their best big play threat down the field is probably Brandon Ayuk, so you should keep an eye on him. But it's that middle of the field that the Eagles will have to worry about, that the Niners could really, really have a field day if the Eagles aren't careful.
You pointed out to us that the number 1 sack guy in the NFL, by the way, tied for second, that would be Hassan Reddick here in Philadelphia, who's ready to get after Mr. Purdy this week. If Bosa doesn't get home, if he doesn't get a sack, 49ers got any other chance to put pressure on Jalen Hurts? If not, who's the other guy in the 49er, either linebacking core or defensive lineman, do you think could actually get a big sack in this game?
Well, actually, I mean, it's a guy who's had a pretty rough week, Charles Omenihu, who was arrested on Monday for domestic violence. He allegedly shoved his girlfriend to the ground in Santana Row, which is like the suburban square of the Bay Area. Is one of those kind of ritzy shopping centers that have some luxury apartments there too. He has 2 sacks this postseason. He's leading the team in sacks this postseason. He's a really good player, and he only plays about 15 to 20 snaps a game. He's been having a really good season. He's one of those guys who subs in and is just like a missile off the edge. So he's a guy you have to look out for, playing well this year. And then I said him earlier, he's not really a huge sack guy, but he really he dictates the whole game on defense. Is Fred Warner. I think he's the best linebacker in football. But as far as sacks, I would say Charles Omenihu.
When I looked at when I sat down and watched film on Fred Warner, man, he runs great sideline to sideline, and I don't know why teams run away from him, because that's plays into his favor. He can go out there and make plays. I believe this offense of the Eagles is going to run at him. Our right side is 300 and 380 on left tackle, 360 on the right guard. Why would you run away from him? Just run right at him, especially with Nick Bosa sitting out there. Run right at him. Can he hold up against a up and down, we're going north and south type of offense with big defensive line? Because we have made a living as far as our center blocking the second level. I think that's the most integral matchup we can talk about, is our center against All-Pro against your defensive linebacker All-Pro.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Now, can he hold up? Of course he can. He's an All-Pro, first-team All-Pro linebacker. But if you have to attack him, that's the way you do, because he's going to run you down if you run away from him.
Right.
He's deceptively fast. Like he runs like a gazelle, and then when he gets you, he makes you feel his presence. He hits hard, and he talks that talk. Every time he hits somebody, he's going to be yelling in your ear. He's really their emotional leader. I think the guy probably does about 8 pregame talks a game. It's hilarious. I do think running at him is the best way to combat him, because his speed and agility and just the way he can cover sideline to sideline is his biggest strength.
Well, I'm going to give you a little nugget too. I'm going to tell you this. Nick Sirianni, head coach, has sent countless tape and film on how, Kinlaw and Armstead hold for him also. They hold and keep the guards from getting up on those backers, centers get up on those backers. So there's going to be something that the referees and officiator are going to be looking for. So just let you know, that might become an issue throughout the game. They hold better than I did when I was in offensive line, the defensive line. So just a little nugget for you guys, and on the stream to look at when you're watching the game.
All right, we will keep an eye on that one, Barrett. Thanks for that tip. All right, Jason, these guys. These coaches for the 49ers, covering them all year out there. They're some of the best coaches in the National Football League. We know that D'Amico Ryan's got a chance to get a head coaching job this year. Shanahan is praised as maybe as good an offensive mind as there is in the National Football League. The 49ers to this point have had to play 19 games, one extra because the Eagles got the bye week because they had the best record in the NFL by 1 game over the Niners. The Eagles have played 18. Do either of these two coaching staff have something left in their bag of tricks? Or is hey, we had to get there first. You got to make it to the championship game to win the championship game. If they do, who's more likely to have it? Ryan's keeping something under wraps on defense that he'll unveil in the championship game, or Shanahan with a wrinkle we've never seen out of the 49er offense before?
It'll be Shanahan for sure, because he's extremely innovative. And I'm sure there's some personnel or packages that he hasn't really brought out. Maybe he's not even saving it for anything, but he just has it at his disposal. Now, even though he's innovative, he also thrives with simplicity. He doesn't want to do too much. He wants to run the ball effectively and then maybe throw through wrinkles and some play action passes out of that run game. So the Eagles really bottle up that run game. Then you might see him start getting a little innovative, but less is more with Kyle Shanahan. It really is. That's why I think it's key for the 49ers to get out to a good start. If they're playing from behind, I think it's going to be over for them because he doesn't, as good as I think Brock Purdy is, and I think he's here to stay, Kyle hasn't really just had him throwing downfield all game and opened up that playbook for him. He's smart with how he uses Brock Purdy. I don't think it'd be an ideal situation if Brock Purdy has to play from behind and he has to really use his arm and will them to a win.
Well, how's the health of this team? You know, right now, the Eagles are the healthiest they've been all season. Even though Lane Johnson is still on the report, Devonta Maddox is still on the injury report. Both have been practicing. Lane is good to go. And it looks like we may even get Devonta Maddox back. If they get him back, then it'd be the entire complement of the defense playing again. Put CJ back at the safety position, Devonta back in the slot. I can see this being, a real aggressive call game by Gannon because everybody's starting to get healthy now. How's the health situation with San Fran and their team?
So the two running backs haven't practiced all week, but they're both going to play. I am surprised they haven't been practicing, but I think it's more just precautious. And, they're just going to let them get their rest and they'll be ready to go on Sunday. But it is a little, you perk your eyes up. It's like, oh, man, they ain't practicing all week. Elijah, who you mentioned earlier, who's a really, really good second-year player.
Yes.
And Christian McCaffrey. Charles Omenihu, who I mentioned earlier, who has 2 sacks this postseason against the Seahawks. He got a strip sack that really changed the game. He has an oblique injury. He's been limited in practice all week. Debo has been limited all week. But I think that's just the nature of the game at this point in the season. Banged up. All of those guys, from everything I'm hearing, are going to play. So on the injury front, I think they're fine. But there's some guys who kind of your eyes. I think the Eagles are a little healthier. But I don't think the Niners are in dire straits or anything.
All right, you mentioned the 2 running backs. I'm going to go to the other running back, who's only out there about 50% of the time, but it seems to me like the offense runs better when he's actually out there, which is Kyle Juszczyk. Nobody in the NFL uses a fullback anymore. Oh, except the 49ers, and they do quite successfully with Juszczyk on the field. He going to be a big part of this game on Sunday?
Yeah, he could be, like I said, Kyle likes using those intermediate routes, the middle of the field. He's also a great run blocker. He'll block for Christian McCaffrey. So, yeah, Kyle Juszczyk will be a factor. It's been to 7 straight Pro Bowls. Granted, he doesn't have a ton of competition at that position, but he's been able to stick in the league and he's been able to become an elite fullback. And everyone says, the Niners use the fullback, but I feel like that's kind of like passive-aggressively a slight on him. They use the fullback because he's really good at it. He's just good. I think any team would use a fullback if he was on their roster. So, yeah, they're going to use him. He's a very smart player. He reminds me, obviously, 2 complete different positions, but just mannerisms and the type of attitude they bring to the team. He reminds me of a Jason Kelce. He's kind of like the heartbeat of the team. He's kind of the brains of the operation. It's like he's an offensive lineman, but he's not. He gets people in place. He's a leader. You see him talking to Brock Purdy all the time. So, yeah, he's going to be used in one way or another. He's a very, very valuable part of that team.
All right, Jason, last thing. The game will start noon Pacific time, 3 o'clock here on the East Coast. So are you working Sunday? If not, are we talking lunch here? Is there a place you can get a cheesesteak out there in San Francisco? What will be your dining pleasure while the Niners are playing the Eagles on Sunday?
Well, first of all, no, there's no place I can get a cheesesteak out here. I won't even order one.
Good on you.
I do work, but I don't have to go into work till about 4. I'm going to do the post-game stuff. We have an hour-long studio show that night at 10 o'clock that I host. So I'll be doing all the studio work, but I'll be able to watch the game in the comfort of my own home. I'll probably order a pizza. I'm kind of superstitious, and as I've said on TV all week when I'm asked by our anchors and stuff at the desk, am I conflicted? No, there's no confliction. I'm a Philadelphian, true and true. I can do my job and be objective and still be professional with with also acknowledging that I'm from Philadelphia and I root for the Philadelphia teams, and nothing's going to change that. So I'm going to watch in the comfort of my own home. I don't feel like being around a whole bunch of Niners fans. I get energy, but I always have nervous energy. It's not because it's the Niners. I had nervous energy last week. I was at the Link for the game against the Giants. So I'll be at the house in the comfort of my own home, watching on a big screen, chomping on some pizza, and if the Eagles win, I might have a midnight green tie on the desk all night.
See, that's what I was going to say. Make sure you take the green off before you go in. You don't have to go to 49er red, maybe a nice blue somewhere in the middle. You don't tick off anybody on either side.
Yeah.
You didn't tick us off today. You entertained and gave us some great insight. Jason, thanks much. Enjoy the game on Sunday.
Appreciate you.
If the Niners win, we'll probably get you back on next week. It won't be a happy time, but we'll get you back on next week to ask about their prep in the Super Bowl. Thanks for jumping in with us today.
All right, Jody Bear. Appreciate y'all, man. Thanks for having me.
Have a good one.
That is Jason Dumas from KRON in San Francisco, Channel 4. He doesn't even front. He's an Eagle guy. He's a Philadelphian. I can objectively read the matchup between these two teams. Oh, rooting interest? You want to know rooting interest? He's rooting for the Eagles. He's going to be wearing green in the apartment watching the game. Then he'll go on TV.
Jody, you've always held claim to the Jets, and you talk Eagles, you love Eagles, but Jets are your squad, man.
And the daughter gave me this Eagle hat to wear. She bought it for me for Christmas. She said, if you're doing Birds 365 every day, you should at least own an Eagle hat. I said, all right, thank you. I waited until Championship Sunday to break it out. Okay, fine. Yes, we will come back here, and Barrett and I will make our official picks. In case you weren't listening earlier, Mike Sealski came on, said 2017 Eagles. John McMullen, before he left, said 24-23 Eagles. You'll see what Barrett Brooks and I think coming back next here on Birds 365.